So one of the things we talked about earlier today was, like myself, and I think a lot of guys, we used to be into the outdoors. We used to do more outdoor activities, but then you give a job and you have a family and you have, all these obligations, and outdoors quickly gets pushed aside.
Mm-hmm.
How do we solve that? How do we fix that problem? How do we get back into the outdoors if we're so inclined to say, I want to do something? Where do you suggest people start?
Well, a guide service like ourselves is a great way to start.
So do you think that that's a good way? So should I say, I want to get back into that? Because this is exactly what we did, really, was, we said, okay, we're going to climb Whitney in July. Okay, well that now means I've got to get ready to climb it.
Right.
Do you think that's the best approach of saying, set a decent goal that's achievable, and commit to doing that? Because like most people, then you're going to do what it takes to make that happen.
I think for a lot of people that's a great motivator, certainly, and for others it's not. For others that seems too intimidating to do that, and for some people it's just they want to kind of get their feet wet in it, so to speak. Just take some hikes and kind of see how it goes and see how they feel.
Do you guys even do like hikes like that where it's somebody that hasn't been in the outdoors? Are there trips you guys run geared for that?
Oh yeah, we have entry-level trips, and we have trips for more experienced alpinists, and everything in between. So if somebody calls us up and tells us they want to go mountaineering, we start asking some questions, kind of get an idea of their experience and background, and then, suggest what we think is going to be a good option for them.
So one of the things I've always wondered, because, on one level I've always had, that outside ambition of climbing something like Everest. But now, as a dad with a young family, part of me also says, is that just being selfish, to try and do something like that, knowing the risks of doing that? Is that real, or is that just, some people don't think these things through when they actually go out and try to climb something like that?
Well, when it comes to something like Everest, that isn't going to be your first mountain. You will have had some experiences before, but you go to a place like that. So I think that's a pretty big leap, to get there. And I think by the time you get to Everest, you understand the risks involved, and it gets into a philosophical question about, well, is this the right thing to do if you got a family and such? And I think everybody needs to answer that question for themselves. You can make a great case for driving on the freeways of LA as being a pretty dangerous thing to do too, and statistically it's probably more dangerous than mountaineering is. But everybody does that just fine. People who shoot guns say guns are safe. People who don't shoot guns say they're dangerous. People who ride motorcycles, say, they're safe. You take the proper precautions. People who don't ride motorcycles say that, So, you can make a case either way, honestly, but I don't see anything wrong with wanting to pursue mountaineering just because you have a family, certainly. There's a lot of things that are dangerous in this world besides that.
But I shouldn't go climb Everest without having spent a lot of time on some other mountains.
That would be a wise thing to do.
If I said I want to climb Everest someday, what does that kind of trajectory look like? What do we climb between now and then?
So if you're a rank beginner, no previous experience, you're going to get a foundation of skills under your belt, and you're going to want to learn about snow and ice mountaineering, and how to use ice axes and crampons, and get yourself on a lot of terrain that gives you the ability to use those things, and start working yourself up in elevation. Climbing some 14,000 foot peaks in California. For example, Mount Whitney, or things in the Palisades, etc., that are going to give you some good experience using equipment, getting comfortable with it. And at the same time, you're getting comfortable in the mountains as well, learning how to take care of yourself more efficiently, and and then start working your way up in elevation. And usually somebody will go to a place like Mexico's volcanoes first, where you can get up to about 18,410 feet, and then there's volcanoes in Ecuador that get you even higher than that. There's Aconcagua in Argentina is 22,841 feet tall, and that's the highest thing in the world outside of the Himalaya, or outside of Asia, I should say. And then along the way, you're just gaining more experience and more knowledge, and then eventually, after you've done a bunch of things like that, then you might go to the Himalaya and try something for the first time.
And what does it take, practically speaking, to that? Like, how long are we talking to do something like a Everest type climb?
Well, I think it's a few years worth of work and training to do it.
Yeah. And then it's a 30-day trip roughly at a minimum, or is it longer than that?
It's closer to 60 days.
60 days.
Yeah.
Any other crazy stories that you want to share with our audience?
Every time we do another trip, there's another, myriad of stories that come out of it. So, I mean, one of these days I should probably sit down and get my autobiography written to record them all, but, there's countless stories out there every time we go.
Well, thank you so much for joining us, Kurt. We appreciate having you.
Well, thanks for having me.
Thanks for the trip to Whitney, and we look forward to something again in the future.
Me too. Me too.